And I think the more that we are, the more that we tamp down what our feelings are for the things that we want, I think we kind of give away a bit of ourselves um,
Mm-hmm.
over time. And so yeah, so I think at that point and moving forward, I was thinking like, oh, there's something in me that I'm not listening to, that I like,
Mm.
that there's a communication breakdown between my thinking self and my feeling self.
My heart in my
And,
head. Yeah.
at some point I'm going to have to reconcile that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was speaking to friends of mine in the entrepreneurial community, and a couple of guys had went and done MDMA assisted therapy in Toronto. And so we were having dinner one night, and one guy, super great guy, super funny, was saying that he got his 80-year-old father to go and do it. And this guy, I think he said his father was from like an Eastern Bloc country. He's just like like a really hard up old man that survived the war, is like fairly racist, like has all of these like not good attributes, but somehow his son got him to go and do this assisted NDMA therapy. And he said, Mike, he came out of that and he was 40% nicer immediately and
Mm.
30% less racist. And,
Wow.
and this is like the day of the again, he was, I'm sure there's hyperbole in there and he was making a joke, but like you could tell that he saw a change in his father that he would never have
Mm.
expected
Mm.
otherwise.
And
It's like,
unlocked something for him, or
for sure, because
yeah.
they say with MDMA, it quiets. Again, I'm not a special in this. This is just things I've read, so please, fact check me.
No.
But like the MDMA is supposed to quiet the amygdala, which is
Hmm.
supposed to be
Emotion.
essentially emotion, but also the fear center. So if you
Yes.
quiet all the fear center, you just feel like safe and love, and you can see parts of your life and people in your life differently, because they aren't wrapped in a sheath of fear or judgment of, will this person stop loving me, they did this thing to me so I'm offended, like all of these things. You don't really see that anymore. You just see love and who they are, for better or for worse. So
Hmm.
that's essentially the idea of how they think perhaps you can begin to recode memories going through this journey with MDMA, because like EMDR, you're able to see it without the fear center on, and you're kind of just they are different modalities, but I think like the central idea for me seems similar. What do you think?
100%. I think, and what we know about trauma is that often when we're in a, and back to what you said at the beginning, I just wanted to note, because I think it was such a key thing that you said, was trauma. We no longer think of trauma as, like, we say big T traumas, right? Like abuse or an accident.
Right.
We think of, and trauma we now know is all about perception. It's all about how you perceive something. So like I could experience something, no issue. You could experience it, and the way you've perceived it is traumatic. So it's actually not about the event, it's about the perception of the event. It's about the impact of the event or chronic event, or like you said, we now know like
Mm,
living in poverty is trauma, right? So it's this repeated kind of chronic stress that becomes
right.
trauma over time, and it's the perception of that. Or if you lived in poverty and you lived with like a very like, beautiful household that kind of held you, and you were kind of bubbled, so to speak, from the impact of that, you maybe wouldn't have found your childhood traumatic. But someone else living in poverty in a different family maybe would have found that traumatic. So I just want to say that, because you said that at the beginning, and I was like, that's such a brilliant point, that it's not trauma. When we say trauma, like when I say I'm a trauma therapist, people think, oh, well, like you work with like, ugh. And yes, I do, but I also work with
Right.
just like with folks who are just like have, or I say to them like, you, that sounds like you have a really traumatic response to that. And they say, oh, no, no. But then when we unpack it, it's like, yeah,
Right.
like your nervous system, your brain encoded that as trauma. Like
Right.
you were so activated in your, like you said, like your limbic system, which is amygdala, hippocampus, like all those structures was
Right.
so activated for whatever reason, how you perceived it, how you experienced it, that this is trauma, right? So,
That's really interesting. So yeah, so if even when you're saying to clients that know they have something to be excavated, and you say that
mhm,
sounds traumatic, they're like, hold on here.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, they're like,
it's not
no,
that, like, 'cause I think there's such a stigma around like, oh no, it wasn't that bad. But like the way
exactly.
you're emotionally dealt with it. Like, let's say how you said the person that maybe comes from a wealthy family and they don't have those trauma of poverty. But let's say they have a parent that for their entire childhood never said that they love them or
Just as
showed them
traumatic.
any appreciation or
Just as traumatic.
right.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and it's not like a it's not being hit, it's not being sexually abused, but like you go through life thinking that your closest caregiver doesn't care about you or like that is traumatic, and it will change the way that you deal with relationships. It will change how
100%.
you look at the world and yourself.
And
So
can be just as traumatic
I,
and
I,
as
I
day
like
Imagine.
big T little T trauma. I like that I like that term.